Tina's daughter.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 22nd meeting of the Warren County Department of the Human Services Committee. And as we have in the past, what we'll do is we'll hear from the Countryside Adult Home, their agenda. And we have Amy with us this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Let me call the meeting to order, I guess at 10:16. And ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the prior committee meeting.
Make the motion.
Supervisor Frazier on the motion. Do I have a second? Supervisor McDevitt, thank you. Call the question. All in favor of approval of the prior committee meeting?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
I will abstain. I don't believe I was there.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. So I will go on to get my stuff. Countryside, it looks like we have three requests. The first request is to create temporary help. And can you help us with request number one, Amy, please?
So what we're looking to do is to create a fund to create temporary help. And I believe that OFA does something similar and DPW does something similar. So we would need to come to committee every time we have somebody out, either on sick leave or even vacation time. So we'll help keep the overtime down. And most importantly, what I found in our staff shortage crisis is the overall utilization of our current staff. So we could have somebody come in and work for a month or a week, and we would be able to do that through this funding process. And it is 50% reimbursable.
Great. Could I hear a motion to bring that to the floor? Supervisor McGowan and Supervisor Frazier on the second. Any questions or comments? Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amy, what a wonderful idea.
Well, it wasn't mine alone. I'm not going to take all the credit for that, but
Well,
thank you.
I think maybe all our departments and maybe the whole country and maybe the world should look at this type of program, just to fill in some of the voids. But that's really great thinking. So I'm so happy that whoever dropped that box of good news there for you and we got here. I think it's great. So thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Anyone else on?
I have a question.
Hey,
I have a question.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thanks. Hi. Yeah. Hi, Amy. So to be clear, you'll be hiring per diems with this money?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have an anticipated, do you have any idea how much
We're
diem
asking,
time you're going to need?
we're asking for $10,000 to be transferred if we need it at some point. Right now, I don't, because I've had so many vacant positions. So I don't need to move money at this point.
I guess my question is 10,000 really realistic? I mean, I'm hearing from the hospital that their need is in the millions per month for per diem. So, is this going to cover it for the rest of the year? Or?
I believe so. I mean, I do have filled 2 of our vacant positions. I still do have 2 open. But I think, yes, I think we can make it to the end of the year tentatively with $10,000.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I will call the question. All in favor of approval of request number one?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. On to request number 2, which is to amend the policy for retirees to allow Countryside Adult Home retirees to return in per diem or part-time positions as that the step they retired at. This would include current employees that have retired and are in those positions. And this would have started on August 1st. Motion to bring it to the floor, Supervisor McGowan and Supervisor McDevitt on the second. Comments or questions?
I have a
had
question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Supervisor Frazier?
I was just curious, what was the policy before?
That when they,
We're amending the policy, but what was it?
so when they retire and they come, return to us, they
Right.
come back at entry. So we are taking employees that have dedicated their lives, they are well-trained, experienced,
Right.
and can help new employees transition into positions. And we're saying, okay, your 30 years of service no longer is null and void, and we're gonna put you back at entry. And again, during this crisis, we have realized we need experienced and well-trained staff that are willing to come back to us. And I want to mention that Countryside has the longest retention of any department within the county. So to bring those employees back to us or to keep them with us after they retire, it just makes sense.
I heard a second
That,
question.
that was me.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Ben. This is more of a question for the acting county administrator, and I certainly don't expect an answer today, but I'm super curious how this policy was implemented for Countryside, but did not appear to get implemented for any other part of Warren County. So could you get us an historical look back on that?
At this point, I cannot. But I will.
No, I'm not asking for an answer today. I'm saying in the future, could we get an answer to that?
Okay,
Thank you.
I might be
let
able
me, go ahead.
a little bit of a help. Actually, public health has already done this with their nurses. They changed their policy. So when those nurses retired and they came back at their step and at the grade they were at. I'm not asking for grade because those nurses came back as nurses. These people that come back may have left as a senior aide and or come back as the two people that I have right now are coming back and working in activities. So that for us, it didn't make sense. But yeah, they already amended their policy a year ago, 2 years ago. It took a little bit to find the resolution.
So
Thank-
Amy, I mean, is this a countywide policy, or does each of these departments, they have these policies in place?
To my knowledge, public health is the only one that's done it so far.
Right, but I mean, the other departments, as far as you, like, are you responding to a countywide policy, or do you just specifically have a policy that only applies to Countryside?
I'm specifically asking for Countryside.
Right, but are you reacting to a policy that only applies to Countryside? Now, the current policy that's in place, does it only apply to Countryside?
No. It's a
It
county
applies across.
policy that when you retire, if you come back to work part-time or per diem into any position within the county, you're going to start at entry.
There's a countywide policy?
I know
Can
that we've had people come back that we had a hard time getting them to come back and stay because, they leave making, $25 an hour. And then they're coming back doing the same work, plus additional duties of training a new staff. And now we're paying them $18 an hour. And
right. No,
hard.
I'm not arguing the merits of this. I think this is awesome and a good idea. I'm just saying that if we have a countywide policy, I guess now my question is, could I see a copy of that policy, please?
All policies are on the page, on Warren County webpage. Take a look down on the left-hand column there and see if there's any of that policy.
I think it would be really great if somebody could directly email me that policy. That would be really, really helpful.
Okay. It's
Thank you.
take longer. but-
And I've been notified that perhaps it would be appropriate to have this as part of the next personnel committee meeting. So we can address that and vet it and see where it goes. So I believe Supervisor Sieber also wanted to be heard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question about this, and it sort of belongs to the supervisor from Johnsburg's questions. I I would like to see this on the next county administrator's agenda. I think it's important to look at the policy across the board and make sure that whatever's going on with public health is consistent with Countryside, which is also consistent then with other departments that are utilizing staff who have retired to come back. We just saw this happen in tourism and created a per diem position, which was, it's my understanding, right around the same salary she left at. It wasn't come back in and it goes down to base pay. So I do think that there is precedent there, but that the policy should be consistent in light of wanting to know how we make a consistent policy. Because I agree that we want people coming back. We want to compensate them at their skill level. And it's a huge value, particularly in areas like Countryside and public health, to have this happening. So I'm fully supportive of it. But I would also like to know how that plays into the waiver situation, how that, are they working up to 30,000? Are they given a waiver? Are they eligible for a waiver? What happens when they exceed it? So those are questions that I'm hopeful to learn from our acting interim county administrator at our next meeting, but ones I think we need to be mindful of when we're approving these types of policies. So it doesn't sound like you'll come close to that, towards the end of this year, but going into next year, you certainly would. So those are my questions, and hopefully we'll learn more about those going forward. But I'm happy to hear there's people that want to come back and provide their expertise. So thank you for letting me ask my questions.
And thank you. And as the chair of the Human Services Committee, I will certainly encourage the interim administrator, sorry, and the chairman to look into that before the next meeting. And so I think it's an excellent recommendation that we do so. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion about this particular request? I will call the question. All in favor of approval, with the understanding that we're going to be looking into this across the board for other departments within the county. Say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so moved. Thank you. And request number 3 was a request to enter into an agreement with the Landing of Queensbury to house 6 residents during the renovation period. And if you could just walk us through that, please, Amy.
We have gone through every scenario that we possibly can think of to keep all of the residents at Countryside. As I've said, the committee probably close to a year are not admitting to keep those numbers down. So there was a proposal of 4 phases, which I thought, okay, we can do this. We will flip back and forth between wings and up and down, and we'll keep them all here. Well, realistically, that's just not possible. They were going to have to build a wall, and it was going to be impossible to get equipment around. And how do you do the abatement? So during one of our meetings that we had, it was discussed whether or not how many residents, could we flip to just one wing, do one wing at a time, and it would be faster and it would be more cost effective. And the number turned out to be about 6, which was kind of actually a perfect number, because that's what our 6 private pay residents that we have are. So what I want to do is enter into an agreement. I've spoken to the Landing several times, have them take our 6 residents. It would only be for the duration of what it takes to do the resident area. So the rest of the building would be continued to be worked on once they were back, but these resident rooms would be done while they were displaced over there. And then they would continue to pay their rate and everything. We would just have to subsidize it a little bit. So again, we're reimbursed, what we have to put out of pocket through the state. It makes the most sense. It's going to have the least amount of impact. It's going to be the most cost effective to do this.
Thank you. A motion to bring that to the floor, please. Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor McGowan on the second. Any discussion or questions for Amy regarding this, Supervisor
So I mean,
McDevitt?
the cost involved, is going to be minimal.
It was originally $250,000 just to do the phasing. When I reached out and like, does anyone remember? I mean, the documents that we have involved with this project, way back to like the beginning of like March. I'm like, does anyone remember what this was gonna cost us? And no one really did. So I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know how much it's literally gonna cost us by doing it 2 instead of 4, but I think it would be at least half of that.
Do we have an amount or just an estimate?
Do we have a do not exceed amount that a contract has to reach?
We haven't entered into anything with this yet. This is just giving me permission to start talking to them about how the contract's gonna be written, or that we can do a contract. I mean, I assume I'll have to come back next month when I have more information to give.
So this is essentially.
This just is a
permission to
preliminary, just
begin the,
saying we can start
conversation.
it.
Okay. Brad?
Um, In your contract, you just remember shared services, working alike, see what we can do to work them in, but, no, I, it makes sense of what you're saying, and that if we can concentrate and, with the balls, and get everything moving, quicker is better, so I'm happy with that. I'm just a little leery, my aunt was in the land for 13 years, so I know how pricey they can be.
Well, the residents will continue to pay their private amount,
Which is 38.75, so that is the bulk of it.
which, right, our prices to the landing are very comparable. The thing is, we don't do any upcharge. So those upcharges are what the ARP, and the funding is coming from ARPA. Wayne Lamont is the one that mentioned this, that we have that part of that funding says that we can do housing if we need to. So we will only be paying this small amount for whatever upcharge that there is. And what you said about your aunt being there, our staff will be there Monday through Friday to check in on them.
Good.
I understand now we have a semantics issue with this particular request. It really isn't an agreement, but basically a conceptual plan to engage in a conversation. So could I ask, I think it was Supervisor Frazier and McGowan to, if they're interested in withdrawing that that motion.
Agreement and go to amend it to enter into negotiations with the landing.
That sound good?
Because we can't enter it.
So,
Right, so enter negotiations.
so delete an agreement and put into, to enter into negotiations with the landing of Queensberry. So do I have a,
I'll amend that if it's all right with
Supervisor McGowan?
our attorney and our,
Okay,
and our administrator, so he understands it.
so they've given their approval to that.
All
So
right,
we have,
so- Negotiations.
Amy,
I just, if you can enlighten me how I can do this, because I'm not really sure. So we needed permission from the Department of Health to even consider doing this. The only way that they'll agree to this is if we have an agreement between us. The plan for our renovation is to start in October. So I brought it to committee in August, hoping to get board approval in September, so we are good to go for October. So is there, will I need to come back to committee to
Well,
Request
present?
for negotiations.
could it be a verbal agreement? No, it has to be signatures and that type of stuff, so.
So a request for negotiations for an agreement with the contract due by
Well, let's,
September board meeting.
in all respect, Supervisor, let's ask our council to maybe make a recommendation.
Yeah,
How would-
I would recommend that if you guys have a specific amount that you know that you're going to be under, if we authorize that amount today, you can always come back to committee to reduce the amount for the contract, but I don't think it's appropriate to enter into a contract without
I do not
having a
exceed.
dollar amount.
Chris,
I don't think it's necessary for us to do it this way. I think this is a agreement that we can work out through the department under former resolutions where I have the right to enter in, negotiate, and fully execute contracts. unless it's a contract that the chairman of the board has to sign, and then it has to go through the county attorney's office. This will be a very simple agreement that we have. So I think we can handle it that way easily. So maybe we should just take this right out of here off the agenda today.
Sounds good.
Makes sense.
Okay. So
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Sieber,
yes.
okay.
With all due respect, before we withdraw this and stop discussion on it, I do have a question. I've had it for a little bit. I was hopeful I could just get some clarity. Yeah, I too am very uncomfortable with entering into any type of contract without seeing some of the language or knowing the amounts. And it sounds like the commissioner hit the nail on the head that if it's something within his purview, he can go ahead and do that. But if it's got to have a signature on it, it's got to come back to committee. We do have 2 board meetings every month in order to try to address these types of issues so that it goes through faster should it have to. But I do want clarification on something I heard about ARPA dollars. I thought the countryside ARPA dollars were for the HVAC. Is there an application that's in specifically for this, or has there been one approved?
I do believe it's one that's been approved.
Would you mind just sending that to me later on then, please? Thank you.
So we're gonna, as I understand, we're gonna kind of go back to the drawing board. And I guess I need the most recent motions to be,
Withdrawn.
I'll
yeah,
withdraw
Fraser and
my,
McGowan to
I'll withdraw my
those.
motion for
Good,
negotiation.
good, okay. So now we're got a clean slate and
We can go with a floor resolution at a,
okay,
at a regular meeting.
okay.
If need be, but just to be clear. if I
Yeah,
may
please,
ask,
yeah, please.
So, Amy, Department of Health is the one that's requesting an agreement, right?
Yes.
So that you have the permission to go ahead to negotiate an agreement. I wonder if that would be sufficient for them, because it's a chicken and egg. You can't.
They were very specific on what this agreement needs to say. This agreement needs to say that it's only going to be 6 residents. This agreement needs to say that it's not costing our residents anything out of pocket. This agreement needs to say that once the renovation has been completed, our residents will return to us. As long as I've met those metrics, I think then we're okay. I just know that, like us, they also need to go to their board and make sure that, because we're taking, a block of 6 rooms from them for potentially 4 to 6 months.
That would be the length of the residency at an alternative location.
We have spoken in depth through DPW and through the architectural firm that they're to focus on the residents' rooms first. Those rooms need to be taken care of and the residents brought back as quickly as possible. All other areas of the building can be worked on once those residents have returned. Our primary focus is getting them done and back.
And what you need in order for this to line up right now is something to give the Department of Health that you have provided for that alternative housing for our residents for that period.
Correct.
And I think Chris has indicated he can basically handle it.
Yeah, we can handle
within
that
the
quite
basic confines
efficiently.
of his responsibility. I think we're
think
kind of talking all around this, and I think they've.
Yeah.
agree.
You
Our
guys have
DSS
you guys have
attorney's
done a
very
lot of work.
comfortable doing this kind of thing. It's a very simple agreement that we can work out. We work with DOH. We need to use the official
Sure.
regulatory wording in the contract. The other thing is that if this is not covered through the ARPA, it's covered through other grants. I spoke with Wayne Lamoth about this before, and the phasing and the cost of housing these people will be covered under one of these things. So we should be fine.
Sounds like you got it covered, Ron.
Thanks.
No, that's okay. Okay, all right. So this discussion has been withdrawn so that people know. So, anything else, Amy, that you'd like to add to the conversation this morning?
No.
Thank you for coming in. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Do you want me to do the census and all of that? Or are we good?
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. I meant, yeah.
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry. I thought maybe this
No, no.
particular request.
Yeah.
Let me see. So our actual census is 34. I have admitted one. It was a necessary admit. So, and I checked this morning, we have 30 referrals. If we took all 30, we would be past our bed capacity. Even being, saying 15 of them, that we took 15, one out of every one that came, half of one, we would still be above our census. So I have no problem thinking that we will get to a full capacity once renovation is finished.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I just had a question. How does that what I'll call waiting list compare to past waiting lists that you've had?
Is significantly
Yeah,
higher.
that speaks well to the work going on, as well as people's understanding of countryside too.
Even though COVID was a horrible, horrible thing
Yeah.
that affected all of us, I think the word of mouth that we have out in the community of how well countryside has done has made people just like, yes, can I please? I mean, you've been recommended by here, you've been recommended by there, and I'm like, I am so sorry, but right now, all I can do is take your referral. We're not admitting, but, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And I truly, once the residents' rooms are done, even though it'll be kind of an uncomfortable time, we could start admitting again. We may not even have to wait until we're fully done. So we might see an increase in numbers in the early spring.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you. And maybe after the renovations, maybe you'll be here talking about an expansion.
Well, that's a whole other thing of Department of Health. I don't know if we want to get into
But
that.
that's great news, Amy, that, these recommendations are coming in and that, that's the leadership up north and the great working abilities you have with your staff. So, and after looking at the overtime, which is coming up next, you guys are up there working hard. So thank you.
Overtime is still, it's almost double compared to last year, but we were down 4 positions. And on top of that, we had holidays, we had vacation time. I've hired 2 people. So hopefully we'll start seeing it come down a little bit each time. And then, the help of getting the temporary per diem positions, and that also should help. I'm optimistic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, would you like to take us through the Youth Bureau agenda?
Yes.
One
Chairman
resolution requests authorization to continue contractual agreements with Warren County municipalities, town and city of Glens Falls to reimburse a portion of the cost of recreational programs and associated community youth service providers as outlined on the attached for 2022.
Yeah, this is just an updated resolution for 2022. The agreements are reviewed annually in conjunction with the state's approval of our RAP plan, the resource allocation plan for Warren County. And this is funding that goes to the individual municipalities in the city of Glens Falls and community programs.
Nice to see that funding has gone up by in excess of 50%. So a motion to bring this to the floor, please. Supervisor Frazier and McGowan on the second. Thank you. Questions or comments for Chris on the Youth Bureau agenda?
When was the last time these were raised?
When was the last time that these were raised, Chris, if you have that information?
I'm not really sure the last time they were raised. They stay pretty steady, but sometimes we can move them around based on different funding streams that might affect it. Maybe Julie has a better recollection of when there might have been an increase.
This is really the first year that they've increased quite a bit by town. And a lot of that is because we contracted with Washington County. It took the administrative piece out that we were paying our staff to do the work, and they divided up equally amongst all the towns and the contracts that we had. Well, the contracts, they didn't raise at all, just the administrative piece was divided up amongst the towns. And that's why you're seeing the increase this year that hadn't been there previously.
I'll ask at your convenience. It doesn't have to be today, certainly. Could you kind of give us a little bit of a recent history on that question?
I'd just like to say,
Yeah.
I believe it's been the same for like years and years. It's
Yeah.
not something.
Since I've been here,
Been quite
Okay,
steady.
all right, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
been doing this a
Yeah,
little
that's all
while.
we need,
Yeah,
I
so,
think.
yeah,
I
this
remember-
is the first increase.
right, the discussion that we had at the meeting with the extra money and how did we want to spend it?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been in my position up there for 11 years and I know pretty much that's kind of. stayed.
COVID changed things a little bit too, because we had some towns that didn't run any summer programs and couldn't.
Right,
So there were some changes for 2020 and 2021 because of that. And what happened was we found out so late that they weren't going to run programs that it really just went into the administrative piece. White House could run a program that qualified under that. So they got a piece of it, but it was really, other towns really didn't need it. Their programs were so limited as well. So it wasn't like we could even divide the money up for the other towns. So other than the COVID years, nothing has changed until this year regarding the amounts the towns received.
Thank you very much. Any other questions relating to Youth Bureau? We'll move on to the Department of Social Services agenda. And there's 6 items. Amanda had distributed an update to the agenda earlier this morning. I hope everyone has that. Again, there's 6 agenda items that we'll be discussing. Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought I had. Okay. So on the contractual agreements, can I call the question? All in favor of continuing the contractual agreements, say aye.
aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I kind of lost my way. I appreciate getting back on track. So this is the agenda for social services. It looks to me like request number 1 and 2 with the committee's approval could be combined, and 5 and 6 could be combined because both are the same departments. Can I get a motion to combine 1 and 2, and then 5 and 6? Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Frazier on the second. So if you could help us with request number 1 and request number 2, please, Chris.
The first one is social welfare examiner number 9, grade 8, base salary 43,638. This is our TA unit. This was due to a promotion back in November. Position is mandated and reimbursed, and we've decided that we're going to have a person who will be able to slide into that position, and we would like to fill it. Second one is a notice of intent to fill position of social welfare examiner number 17, which is also grade 8, base salary 43,638. This is the Medicaid unit. This was due to a retirement back in January. Position is mandated and reimbursed. We were waiting to see if we were going to fill this position or not, and at some point, our deputy commissioner, Christina Mastriani, decided that we definitely needed to fill this position, and we are requesting to fill it.
So the initial motion was to combine them. So I'll ask for a motion to bring request number 1 and 2 to the floor. Oh, I did. Okay, all right. So 1 and 2 are on the floor. Questions or comments about either? Okay, I will call the question. All in favor of approval of request number 1 and 2, say aye.
Aye.
Any? Thank you, Zoom people. So moved. Request number 3, please, Chris.
The third one is a notice of intent to fill position of social services investigator number 2. This is a grade 11 of base salary, $47,145. This is in our fraud unit. We recently had a resignation effective August 4th. And we would like to fill that position as soon as possible.
Supervisor McGowan.
Bring it to the floor.
And I think we're going to do 3 and 4 separately. So number 3, unless people want to combine 3 and 4, that's certainly our.
They're 2 different prices
Yeah.
and 2
Okay,
different
yeah.
dates.
So let's do number 3, Mr. McGowan on the motion. Do I have a second? Supervisor Frazier. Discussion on number 3. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Any opposed? So moved. Number 4, please, Chris.
Number 4 is also a notice of intent to fill position senior caseworker number 4, grade 18, base salary is $56,104. It's in our Child Protective Services unit. This is due to a resignation effective the 27th of August. This person is moving on to work for New York State, and this position is mandated and reimbursed. So it will provide an opportunity for a promotion within the department.
We're already on the floor. So questions or comments?
sure.
Oh, no, for this one, we're not. Okay, Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Frazier again. My apologies. Questions or comments for Chris on number 4? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. So moved. And now we're going to be combining request number 5 and 6, and that's already been brought to the floor. So comments or questions? Oh,
Well,
go
I
ahead.
believe you had 4 and 6 going together. So would you like me to go with 6 now and then return to 5?
No, I did have 5 and 6, didn't I? Okay, a motion to bring 5 and 6 to the floor, please. Supervisor Frazier and Supervisor McDevitt on the second. Okay. So they're on the floor.
got a question.
Supervisor McGowan, go ahead.
Yeah, 4 and 6 are the same base salary, grade 18, all right? 5 is a grade 16. I'm not sure the process, but does that make a difference?
I think that's what I was just trying to clarify, because the chairman had mentioned previously that he would like to bring 4 and 6 together along with 1 and 2 together when we started. So I can move on to 6 now, and then we can return to 5.
The motion, when you make a motion, it's just to approve it. You can approve it.
Okay, yeah. Again, we could have approved all 6 of them.
All right,
I thought that I was going with 5 and 6 because they're both in the foster care adoption unit. That was my thinking, not as much the salaries involved, but
fine with me. We approved it, so
Okay, yeah.
let's keep moving on. So,
So-
sorry.
okay. Okay, so any discussion on 5 or 6? Request number 5 or 6. Hearing no comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of approval of request number 5 and 6, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, and I apologize for my confusion.
It
But we
was
did
mine.
get through this, the agenda. There are Is there anything else that you have before we ask Julie for her part of the report, Chris?
I do not have anything
Okay.
further. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
How are you?
Okay.
In the interest of time, revenue and expenses, unless somebody has any questions, I really don't have any concerns, nothing out of the ordinary. You know, through the 7th month of the year, we're pretty much on target
Okay.
for making budget for 2022. In our overtime, again, still just not anything we can do about it. The nature of the case is the amount of time spent on each case. It's just extremely high. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of time on the caseworker's part.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for?
I just have
Go ahead,
one
Edna.
question. When you're under the part-time salaries, like last year was 11,000, this year is 24. It's because you've had so many people leave and you just kind of had to fill in.
Actually, we had an additional keep temp this year because keep has really, we've gotten a lot of money from keep.
Okay,
And it allowed that extra person because keep was just buried this year.
okay, thank you.
It was that extra position.
Anyone else? In the absence of, I would like to just make one quick comment, and I mentioned it at last Friday's board meeting. Warren County Department of Social Services certainly hit a home run with the service to a Ukraine family who have relocated to Warren County. And again, my appreciation and thanks to the entire department who was involved with this. So thank you. Any other questions or our attorney?
If I could, Larry
Yep.
Ellman, County Attorney. There was a matter that came before this committee earlier concerning Countryside Adult Home.
Okay,
Specifically, it was for alternative housing for 6 private pay, private rooms for residents. My office did review and prepare for this contract to go to the board. I would ask the board, while the commissioner does have certain authority and powers to contract, I would ask this committee to represent and reconsider this request for a resolution. And in the interim between today and the board meeting, we can deconflict with the Commissioner for Department of Social Services the authority question on this particular contract. But because of the time-sensitive nature of it, I would ask this committee to move forward on a resolution and consideration of the request, so that if it's best passed by the Board of Supervisors, we'll be in a position to do that in a timely way so the contract can start promptly or be available promptly in October of 2022. Subject to any questions on that?
thank you,
comment?
Mr. Ellman.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Well, let me motion to bring it to the floor, please.
I'll
Supervisor-
bring it to the floor.
And Supervisor Hogan on the second. So go ahead, Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I'm going to need a complete restatement of what this resolution is. I'm totally confused at this point.
The resolution request from Countryside Adult Home was, the purpose of the contract was for alternate housing for 6 private pay, private room residents during the renovations, which will be occurring at Countryside Adult Home. The contractor is the Landing of Queensbury. The commencement date is to be October 1st, 2022. And the termination date will be the completion of the renovations for the residence rooms at Countryside. It's just to provide some residents alternate housing so the renovations can move forward at Countryside. And this was all in the
Well,
packet that.
I understand that, but there's no money attached to that because it hasn't been negotiated, correct?
I don't have the backup papers from the package, but I'm not sure that it has I'm not aware of what the dollar price is going to be for those rooms at this time.
So can this committee move this forward with the language in a form acceptable to the county attorney and ratified by the full board?
Yes.
Let's do that then.
Go ahead, Supervisor. Okay. Additional questions or comments?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do
So,
I have to amend my motion? Is that what was just said?
no, I think we're good there. Okay, so consistent with the language that our county attorney has provided to us, I'll ask the question, and all in favor of moving forward as stated by Mr. Ellman, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm
I'm
abstaining,
just
please.
I'm gonna abstain because I feel like there's information there that I don't have. That's
Okay.
all.
Fine. So we have one abstention.
No, two, please. I'm
Two.
abstaining.
Okay, all right, two. So moved and passed.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Kind of what I said.
And my apologies to the next two committees. We're a little over our time, but we had some important work to get to. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Supervisor Frazier.